$486. That's how much I spent fixing the mailbox the third time. And I hadn't even lived in the neighborhood a full month yet. Hey, before we dive in, let me know in the comments, have you ever had a neighbor from hell? And if you're watching this, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. You're going to want to see how this story ends. It started innocent enough. I'd just moved into a quiet cul-de-sac in northern Arizona, the kind of place where American flags wave gently on porches and sprinklers hiss on schedule. I'd saved for 6 years to afford my first home. Nothing fancy. Single story, decent yard, fresh coat of paint. I was proud of it. The first morning after move-in, I met Jennifer Miller. She showed up while I was unpacking boxes in the garage. Blonde bob, oversized sunglasses, leopard print leggings, and a clipboard like it was fused to her wrist. She didn't say welcome. She said, "Your trash bins need to be pulled in before noon per HOA Guideline 7.3. Just so you know." Then she smiled, wide and plastic, like she was proud to be the rules police. I remember saying, "Hi, I'm Alex. Nice to meet you." She just blinked and added, "We take pride in appearances here." That was it. A week later, my brand new black steel mailbox was flattened. At first, I thought it was an accident. Maybe a delivery truck clipped it. But my doorbell cam told a different story. 6:38 a.m. A white Ford Expedition rolled up, fast, overshooting the corner, popping the curb and smashing the mailbox clean off its base. The vehicle didn't even slow down. It just curved back onto the street and disappeared. I paused the footage. License plate wasn't clear, but that decal on the rear window? Millers do it better. Real subtle. I confronted Jennifer that evening. "Hey," I said, keeping it casual. "Someone in a white SUV hit my mailbox this morning. Might have been you?" She laughed, actually laughed. "Oh, it's barely sticking out. And your placement is too close to the curb anyway. I've lived here 12 years. Never had a problem turning until now." She didn't offer to pay, didn't apologize. Just walked back to her garage, muttering, "Some people are so sensitive." I reported it to the HOA. The response? "Please ensure your mailbox complies with Section 5.2 regarding curb proximity. Not a word about damage or consequences or justice." Second time she hit it, I hadn't even finished repairing the first. Third time I reinforced it with a thicker post, braced with concrete. That one lasted 4 days. Each hit was more deliberate than the last, as if she was proving a point, that the space in front of my house, my mailbox, even my patience, all belonged to her. I started documenting everything. I printed timestamps, took photos, even upgraded my cameras. Then came the letter. Notice of violation, improper aesthetic mailbox material, signed by Jennifer Miller, HOA Enforcement Liaison. That was the moment something shifted. Not anger, not yet. Just this cold, sinking realization. I wasn't dealing with an entitled neighbor. I was dealing with a Karen with power, and she'd decided I was her next project. By the time she crushed my mailbox for the 4th time, reversing into it no less, I knew I needed to stop reacting. I needed to fight back. The 4th time Jennifer hit my mailbox, I didn't call the HOA. I didn't knock on her door. I didn't even flinch when she smirked at me from behind her windshield while reversing over it like it was a speed bump. I just stood there on my front lawn, arms crossed, watching the shards of metal and wood scatter like broken bones. She wanted a reaction. I gave her silence. Inside, I opened my laptop and started compiling everything into folders. Footage, images, dates, HOA responses, or lack thereof. My inbox had 3 different warnings now. Non-compliant structure, improper paint finish on mailbox, and, my favorite, unapproved external security devices. That last one referred to the camera I'd installed because of Jennifer. Apparently, protecting my own property counted as a visual nuisance. But here's where it got worse. That week, a delivery driver left a package next to the ruined post. 30 minutes later, a letter showed up. Obstruction of pathway, potential trip hazard. Again, signed by Jennifer. Again, with that same passive-aggressive tone masked behind faux official language. I knocked on my neighbor's door. Curtis, a quiet guy in his 60s with a golden retriever and a habit of trimming his hedges with military precision. He barely opened the door. She got you too? He asked, not waiting for me to speak. I nodded. 3 years, he sighed. 3 years she's made my life hell. First it was my flower beds, then the garden gnome my daughter gave me. She even filed a complaint about the color temperature of my porch light. I asked him why he hadn't spoken up. Curtis glanced over my shoulder toward Jennifer's house. You'll learn. She doesn't fight fair. The last guy who challenged her, HOA, fined him so hard he moved out. Jennifer claimed it was non-compliance stress. Whatever that means. He shut the door with a soft, good luck. That night, I replaced the mailbox with a temporary one, a plastic Home Depot model, zip-tied to a sawn-off post. It looked ridiculous, but I wasn't aiming for permanence. I was setting bait. Sure enough, 2 mornings later, 7:12 a.m., her SUV veered into the same curve and boom. Down went mailbox number 5. Only this time, the cam caught everything in crystal clear 4K. Her license plate, her expression. Even the moment she leaned out the window, looked at the mess, and, I swear, laughed before driving away. I uploaded the footage to a private backup drive, copied it to a USB, and mailed a copy to myself for time-stamped proof. Then I made coffee and stared at the ruins. Something needed to change. I spent that afternoon walking the neighborhood, observing, counting, taking mental notes. You know what I found? 3 other mailboxes on my block sat nearly flush with the curb, same as mine. No violations, no warnings. One was even painted bright orange, but only mine, the one Jennifer kept smashing, kept getting notices. Pattern, bias, abuse. The HOA office was a 2-room extension on the back of our community center. I showed up unannounced and asked to speak with someone, anyone, besides Jennifer. The receptionist gave me a sympathetic look. Technically, she's the acting liaison and the HOA vice president. Who's the president? Technically, she is too. Interim. Right. So I asked to file a formal complaint. She handed me a generic form, 4 checkboxes, 2 lines for explanation. I wrote out 3 pages, stapled the footage screenshots, and submitted it all. A week later, I got a response in the mail. After review, the HOA has found no evidence of misconduct. Please ensure future mailboxes comply with design and placement regulations. That was it. No mention of the footage. No acknowledgement of damage. Just bureaucratic denial, probably signed by Jennifer herself. That was the moment I realized. Jennifer didn't just think she was above the rules. She was the rules. At least until I found a way to flip the script. And I had just the idea. I drove to a landscaping supply store 30 minutes out of town. Not the big chain kind, the kind where the gravel's still loose under your boots, and the guy behind the counter wears a flannel even in July. His name was Brent. He had a forearm tattoo of a chainsaw and spoke in monosyllables. You sell steel edging? I asked. He nodded, then led me outside to a pallet stacked with coiled strips. Flat, galvanized steel, meant to divide flower beds or outline gravel. Heavy, sharp if cut right. I need something sturdy, I added. Brent looked at me, then looked at my car. Problem with rabbits? I didn't answer. By sundown that same day, I had exactly what I needed. 10 feet of steel edging, industrial bolts, a pair of thick gloves, and a legal defense plan that wouldn't just hold up, it would snap back. Next morning, I spent 4 hours digging. Not a trench, just enough depth to embed the steel into the ground, flush with the soil, but tilted, like shark fins buried under turf. Not high enough to be seen from a car window, but if something heavy rolled over it, good luck. I positioned them just behind the new post I installed, a reinforced composite number that looked innocent but was anchored in 80 pounds of concrete. Around it, I placed a ring of decorative stones, not enough to stop a car, just enough to suggest intention. To top it off, I planted 2 dwarf boxwoods beside the setup and printed a laminated tag. Community Beautification in Progress, HOA Section 4.2 compliant. I'd read every word of that handbook by then, 3 times. Section 4.2 allowed residents to install decorative elements near their mailbox as long as they didn't obstruct visibility or impede foot traffic. I met every rule, and I made sure to document every step. Photos, measurements, Time-stamped video of me installing it all with a level and a tape measure in hand. Let's be clear, this wasn't a trap. It was a landscape reinforcement concept, and it was perfectly legal. 2 days passed. Jennifer drove by slower than usual, sunglasses on, chin high. She stared at the new setup as if trying to decide whether it was worth another go. Her SUV didn't veer. Not that day. Then came Saturday. I was trimming my front hedge when I heard it. Crunch, clang, metallic shriek. Not the sound of a regular impact. No, this was sharper, nasty, followed by an immediate hiss of air. I turned in time to see Jennifer's SUV lurch sideways, front right tire deflating fast. Her face through the windshield, wide-eyed, red, mouth open in pure disbelief. She jerked the wheel, but the damage was done. The tire peeled like wet paper. Steam rose from the wheel well. I walked over, slow and deliberate. I kept my phone recording. "You all right?" I asked. Her door flew open. "What the hell did you do to your mailbox?" "I reinforced it," I said. Calm, not smug, not angry, just done. "This is sabotage. I'll have your house blacklisted, fined, evicted." "I followed every HOA rule," I said, panning my phone across the setup. "Mailbox's curb distance, 8 inches. Decorative elements, approved by Section 4.2. Ground level reinforcement, buried edging, completely permitted for soil retention and weed barriers." She was shaking, not from injury, from rage. "I'll sue you." I raised an eyebrow. "For what? Protecting my property from repeated destruction? I have 5 incident videos, all with you behind the wheel." She went silent for a moment. Then she pulled out her phone, called someone, loudly, purposely within earshot. "Tom, it's me. Get legal. We've got a situation with a malicious homeowner." I stepped back. "Jennifer," I said, "you keep saying I'm the problem, but the only person who's driven over this mailbox 5 times is you." She didn't reply, just paced in circles near her car, waving her arms like a performer auditioning for chaos. The tow truck arrived 30 minutes later. The driver gave a long whistle when he saw the tire. "What did she hit?" he asked me. "Mailbox," I said. He blinked. "Damn. You build it with rebar or something?" I didn't answer, just smiled. Jennifer rode shotgun in the tow truck, arms folded, face redder than the sunburn peeling off my neighbor's neck. As they pulled away, I took one last look at the damage. Not to my property, to hers. That mailbox? Still standing. The Monday after the incident, a certified letter arrived. Return address, Oak Hollow HOA. Inside was a printed complaint, 2 pages long, stamped and highlighted. Intentional endangerment, violation of Section 6.1, unsafe landscaping installations. Jennifer had wasted no time. I expected it. I'd even prepared for it. But what caught me off guard was the addition, a scheduled emergency safety inspection of my property within 72 hours. Signed not only by Jennifer, but also by the HOA secretary, a man named Barry Klein, whose house sat directly across from hers. So I went on offense. First, I printed out every photo and timestamp from my mailbox project. I created labeled folders with HOA guidelines, property layout sketches, and a copy of my email chain requesting clarification on Section 4.2, which notably never received a reply. Then I uploaded everything to a Google Drive and sent the link to every neighbor on the block with the subject line, "Mailbox Incident, Truth Matters." I wasn't expecting replies. I got 6. Most were cautious. "I've had my issues with her too, but I don't want trouble." One was bold. "This is exactly what happened to my porch railing last year. She said it was unapproved material and made me replace it." But the most unexpected came from Susan Langford, HOA treasurer. "I've been waiting for someone to push back," she wrote. "Count me in." 3 days later, the inspection team showed up. Jennifer, Barry, and a guy in a navy polo who introduced himself as a private risk assessment specialist. No credentials, no badge. They brought clipboards and attitude. "Mr. Keller," Jennifer began, stepping onto my property without asking, "we're here to assess potential safety violations as authorized by the HOA charter." I smiled and hit record on my phone. Of course, you'll find everything you need right here. I handed over a bound packet. Measurements, soil safety data, even my receipt for the steel edging. All labeled, all neat. Jennifer barely looked at it. She walked straight to the mailbox, crouched, and jabbed the tip of her pen into the dirt. This edging is exposed. It's flush with the surface, I replied, per regulations, and protected by decorative ground cover, also per section 4.2. Barry tried to chime in. It could damage a tire. Only if a tire drives over my property, I said. The inspector muttered something about increased liability and began taking photos. I took some too, of them inspecting without permission, standing on my private lawn without cause. After 15 minutes of tense silence and fake note-taking, Jennifer stepped closer. This isn't over. I met her gaze. No, it really isn't. By that evening, the HOA had issued an official fine, $500 for willful creation of a hazardous environment. No breakdown, no hearing, just a demand for payment. But this time, I wasn't alone. Susan, the treasurer, emailed me directly. I didn't authorize this fine. It wasn't voted on. She's bypassing procedure again. She agreed to meet the next day. We sat in the corner booth of a local diner. She was cautious but angry. She's been doing this for years, Susan said, stirring her coffee. Barry signs whatever she puts in front of him. The rest of us? We're scared, or tired, or just trying to keep our homes. I slid the folder across to her. Inside, photos of all 5 mailbox hits, HOA guidelines, records of unaddressed complaints, and a copy of the new fine. Susan stared at it, then pulled something from her purse, an envelope thick with documents. You're not the only one keeping receipts. Inside were internal memos, budget inconsistencies, votes that never happened, HOA funds used for community consulting, all paid to Jennifer's husband's LLC. I want her gone, Susan said quietly, but I can't do it alone. You won't have to, I told her. And I meant it, because the tide was turning, and Jennifer Miller was finally running out of road. We didn't call it a rebellion. Not out loud, in emails, texts, whispered conversations between hedges. We called it an accountability effort, but everyone knew what it really was. By Thursday, 7 households had quietly joined. Susan looped in another board member, a retired school teacher named Lenora, who'd once been fined for having non-regulation curtain patterns. She still had the violation letter pinned to her fridge. We scheduled a formal HOA meeting, per the bylaws, requiring 30% homeowner signatures. We got 45% in 3 days. Jennifer tried to cancel the meeting. Susan overruled her. That night, the Oak Hollow Community Center parking lot overflowed. People brought lawn chairs. The room was packed. Some residents hadn't attended a single meeting in years. Now they stood shoulder to shoulder, clutching copies of bylaws and digital folders on iPads. Jennifer sat at the head table, Barry on her right. She wore white. Of course. This meeting, she began, is clearly orchestrated by a few disgruntled individuals who— Point of order, Lenora interrupted. Per Article 3.4, the board must hear formal complaints when submitted with proper quorum support. We have it. Jennifer's smile didn't reach her eyes. Fine. Proceed. So I did. I stepped forward, placed my packet on the podium, and opened with a calm, steady voice. I moved here to live in peace. I've spent the last 2 months being harassed, fined, and ignored. Not because I broke rules, but because I stood up to someone who thinks she is the rules. Gasps, murmurs. I showed the footage. 5 separate mailbox hits. I played audio from Jennifer's This Isn't Over line. I displayed comparison photos of neighboring mailboxes, unpunished, untouched, versus mine. Then came Susan. She brought out financial records. Highlighted line items, consultation, $3,200. Beautification advisor, $1,800. All tied to Jennifer's husband's company. Finally, Lenora pulled up board vote records. Blank sheets where signatures should have been. Items marked approved without discussion. And then, just when I thought it couldn't go deeper, Susan handed me a flash drive. From Barry, she whispered. He's finally done covering for her. On that drive, audio, Jennifer, in a private meeting, saying, Some of these people are too stupid to understand HOA law. You keep finding them, they either pay or move. Either way, we win. It played through the speakers like thunder, and in the silence that followed, nobody said a word. Then came the vote. Motion: remove Jennifer Miller as HOA president and permanently suspend her from any governance role. In favor, 42 hands. Against 2. Abstained. Barry, eyes on the floor. Jennifer stood. Slow. Cold. Face rigid. "You'll regret this," she hissed. Maybe. But that wasn't today. In the following weeks, things changed fast. All fines against me were dropped. The hazardous landscaping label? Reversed. My mailbox stood untouched. And more importantly, respected. Susan became acting president. Transparency returned. Meetings got shorter. Emails stopped sounding like threats. One morning, I stepped out to grab the paper and found a note tucked inside. "Thank you for standing up when we couldn't. Curtis." 2 weeks later, Jennifer's white SUV pulled out of her driveway for the last time. For sale sign out front. No goodbye. Good riddance. That weekend, we had our first real block party. Someone brought a karaoke machine. Lenora grilled ribs. Curtis even let his dog wear a Karen Patrol bandana. As I watched the kids ride bikes past my fully intact mailbox, I finally let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Sometimes peace costs more than silence. Sometimes it takes steel spikes and stubborn hearts. But in the end, it's worth every inch.